Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second insurance industry webinar. It's great to see so many familiar faces with us again. I'm Adrian Nagorski, an SDR at FlexRoll. With me today, I got Arash Aglara, the founder of FlexRoll. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we start. There is a Q&A box at the bottom of the window where you can enter all your questions. We've allocated time towards the end to answer all your questions. So please feel free to put them in there. Golly, our head of customer success, will be managing that. We are recording this session, so for any reason, if you get disconnected or need to jump off, don't worry, we will be sending out the recording to you at a later stage. I also want to take this moment just to briefly introduce FlexRoll to everyone. We're currently headquartered in Melbourne, Australia. We are a leading end-to-end business decision management suite. Our mission is to empower leaders, business operation, and IT across organizations to improve the speed and quality of key business decisions in a changing environment. I'm proud to say we have customers across the world, North America, Europe, APAC. And what's very interesting is not just one industry, but a broad range of industries, such as insurance, finance, logistics, manufacturing, as well as government agencies, just to name a few. Our previous webinar was regarding about empowering the insurance underwriting team to rely less on IT. This one will be focusing on how we can improve the claims process. All right, fantastic. So to begin, I'm going to hand over to Arash. Sir, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Adrian. It's a pleasure to have you here, as you've been a very big advocate out there in social media and online forums and talking to many prospects about this topic. I'm very excited about this particular webinar because we're going to talk about a practical approach that allows insurance companies do a better claim processing. And we're going to talk about how does it look like. But before we begin, you might ask why this time of the webinar, we're talking about claim improvement in insurance. I hate to break it to you, ladies and gentlemen, insurance claim is broken. Let's have a look at a couple of news and a couple of more stats. So what you see is a news about United Healthcare, which a lawsuit filed for them because of the predictive model rejects claims unlawfully. There is another one which reports in 2022, this particular one related to Australia, and I'm sure it will be based on the stats that we're following across any other region as well. The reports of insurance are full of errors and issues, which essentially damages the reputation. It is a compliance and fine issues, and it creates audit problems for the insurers. So let's look at a couple of stats. That was only the news part. So in the recent year, 50% increase in complaint just regarding the claims. And within this 50% increase in complaint, the handling time increased 76%, not 50, not 40, almost 1.5 more. That's only on the claim processing side. Now, if you look at the consumer side, 41% are willing to switch if they find a better insurer, and 69% lack the trust to insure providers that they can process their claims correctly. So based on what we just saw and shared here, you can see claim is not all sunny and glorious. Clients are unhappy. Providers are under tremendous pressure to deliver better service. And as one might say, claim is the moment of truth. So they have investment in insurance. When they want to get the most out of it, they can't. So that's why we want to help insurance providers to do a better job in processing the claims. Well, what does it look like? How do we improve it? Where do we improve it? And how do we know the improvements we do actually has a good impact in the right direction for profitability and customer satisfaction? Because profitability and customer satisfaction, as we go to the next slides, you can see they are kind of in competing priorities. So if you go to the next slide, if you see the next slide, we're going to talk about that in a minute. So the next thing I want to talk about is a decision-centric approach. Just a side note. So decision-centric approach brings people, rules, data, and processes together, ensuring that the providers like insurance can make optimized customer-centric situation-aware decisions while they're aligned with the business objectives like profitability, customer satisfaction, reducing risk, and so on. We're going to apply this methodology to insurance, and we want to see how we can improve two things: profitability and customer satisfaction. Now, if we look at the broader perspective, generally, when we can say we are improving things, we need to look at some business metrics. So I'm going to introduce a couple of business metrics, and also this being validated with Gartner. If you want more details, you can look at the digital outcome for insurance document from Gartner. There are more explicit definition of the metrics we're talking here. The first metrics we need to look at it is claim ratio. This is the claim cost incurred during certain period in relation to the premium. So the lower the claim ratio, the better is for the business. Now, to make the claim ratio smaller, you can increase premium, which I bet your consumer will not like it, but that's one of the ways. So, and that's what I mean, they are in competing priorities, because increasing premium reduces this, but makes the consumer unhappy. So one is claim ratio. The second metrics is claim, we call it FTE 1000. And what that means is for processing 1,000 claims, how many full-time equivalent you need. Top industry performers are around the number 5. So just keep it in mind. Another metrics is called cost per claim, and we call it CPC here, just for the ease of discussion. And this is not the total cost. This is loss adjustment, labor adjuster, travel expense, tech overhead, whatever it is included. This particular metrics is a very good lagging indicator to understand the productivity and high manual task that is happening inside your claim team. The other one, which is related to the customer satisfaction, is Net Promoter Score, NPS, very famous one, and we need to increase the NPS. Therefore, that is the indicator that your customers are satisfied and they recommend your company as an insurer to their friends and families. So if we look at these 4 metrics, claim ratio, FTE, CPC, and NPS, we need to make sure that they are improving in we are adjusting them in the right direction, right? So claim ratio should go down, FTE should go down, cost per claim. So it's cheaper if we can process, the cost for processing a claim goes down, and NPS should go high. So let's see what we can do to improve each of them one by one. So we're going to go to the next slide. What we can do in the claim ratio to reduce the claim ratio, again, to just remind you, that is the cost incurred for a certain time period in relation to the premium. So in order to reduce the claim ratio, we can apply some straight-through processing. So the number of the straight-through processing for taking decisions in claim, as we increase, that will impact the claim ratio, reduces that, because you don't need that many headcount to do that. So As a result of increasing the SDP ratio, there is another intermediate metrics for settle time. The settle time will be impacted in the right direction, meaning settle time will be reduced because you're doing things automatically. Now, when we improve the settle time, that in turn has influence on FTE, CPC, and MPS. So we leave it at that stage, and let's look at other angle. So the notice of loss, everyone in this webinar is familiar probably with the notice of loss. When a claim is launched, notice of loss is created from the information we collected, and that's the initiation of the claim process. Interestingly, they are full of error and inaccurate data and missing information. So if we just increase the quality of notice of loss itself, it move the needle in the right direction to improve the metrics for FT1000, CPC, and MPS. And we're going to talk about the next one, which is the pay. 20% of the calculated pay for insurers are wrong. So if we just increase the pay accuracy, that also influences these three metrics. So if we look at the full picture, it looks like this. It looks complex, but the good thing is just by changing the SDP ratio, annual quality, and pay accuracy using automated decision, we can improve all the metrics in the right direction. Therefore, we can improve the product profitability and customer satisfaction. And that's how you apply decision-centric approach in the domain context for insurance. However, the big question is these automated decisions, what are they, at what stage, how we can do it, what technology do we use, and how we implement it. And this leads us to the next slide to look at the claim process at 1,000-feet view. So either in the health insurance or in general insurance, that's the 100,000-feet view. So we have issue a notice of loss, then we review it, and then we go to adjudication and settlement. We particularly took out the verification as a very specific stage in this particular meta model. But many other insurers use them inside different stages. We want to talk a little bit more about verification. That's why we have it here. And then the payment. So as we go through different cycle of the claim, we do now want to talk about different stage review, adjudication, verification, payment. Look at the challenges and how we can improve them using particularly improving the metrics we talked. For example, as you can see in the review stage, inaccuracy of notice of loss is a very driving factor for many issues down the track, including fraudulent claims and delay and lack of transparency for the consumer. So if we improve the notice of loss quality, for example, that's gonna move the needle in the right direction to increase the customer satisfaction and profitability. But how? So many often we see the notice of loss are digitized, but digitization doesn't really matter at very core of it if the information we receive still not accurate. So digitization of notice of loss doesn't mean we put just one form on the website and customers go and put whatever information they need all it at once. What we need to do is we need to create a core for NOL that asks the right question from the consumer based on type of the claim, based on the insurance they have, the policy they have, based on the accident that has happened. Ask the right question at the right time to fill out the complex form. Otherwise, it doesn't help anyone to have one form and dump any information there, right? So we need a core of the what's the next best question engine to build in as part of this core capability. Once we've done that, then the channel doesn't really matter. It can be mobile, it can be chatbot, it can be web form, whatever it is. It uses this dynamic questionnaire core to ask the relevant question based on the type of claim from the client to provide the information. And once we've done that, we can include the data validation part as part of it as well. So sometimes this validation requires inspection and looking at the accidents and all of that. That's fine, but we can automate many of these data validation also upfront. And once we've done that, then we can look at the trend of information that we're collecting and find suspicious activity. So you can see with combination of the dynamic questionnaire that gives you a core, what's the next best question to ask from the client, data validation, and looking at the activities and suspicious information, we can improve the NOL quality, which in turn will improve the CPS, FTE, and NFS metrics, which in turn increases the profitability and the customer satisfaction. So if we look at the next stage of the claim, this is the adjudication. So the claim adjudication stage is mostly about claim eligibility and coverage. Besides investigation and fact-checking and time-consuming tasks that we require to do, the main reasoning behind the delay in the adjudication is determining the coverage base, including terms and conditions and exceptions and everything that is encoded into the policy document, which is all of it the legal term. So it is a manual job open to interpretation. And what that means is it is very much error prone. Personal interpretation is involved. And as we know, humans are not the best species to taking decisions when it comes to manual task and pressure. And as a result, inconsistency you can see across the adjudication. So that results in the invalidity of the claims down the track. And it is a really hard job to understand every time for every single cases for different policies. What we can do is we can have an automated decision. And as a matter of fact, we're going to show you a settlement, automated settlement in the adjudication in our platform in a minute. But when you do the automated decision, what that means is it improves the SDP ratio. And we can also include the automated decision to calculate the pay. And what it means is all of a sudden, three business metrics, CPC, FD, and NPS is improved. And therefore, profitability and customer satisfaction are increasing. What you want for adjudication is called quick, accurate, consistent, transparent adjudication. And that's the core and time-consuming part in the claim. If we look at the next stage, verification, and that's, as I mentioned, we particularly took this out, so you might have verification at different stages, but you might have a big before payment verification as well. So when it comes to verification, many technologies think it as AI, ML approaches to do verification, and we can see the problem of verification with the United Health, which the predictive model wasn't behaving according to law, and the lawsuit happened. So it is not only about the AI, ML approaches and all of that. So we need to make sure verification of the identity, NOL coverage, and then therefore we can have also AI, ML approaches to identify fraud and behavior. And what that means is in verification, we need to combine multiple techniques. It includes AI, ML, it includes rules, it includes external data point and services check. And with doing that, we can actually guardrail, even if we use predictive model for verification, we can guardrail the result and outcome of the predictive model with business rules, which then it could avoid United Health for the lawsuit. So that's also on the verification part. Now, the last stage, the payment stage. This is very interesting because based on National Association of Insurance Commissioners, 20% of the claim amounts are wrong. So what that means is it should go literally back to calculation, check for the adjudication, eligibility, and coverage. So it's kind of a very, very big job to do those calculations over and over and repeat it again. So what we can do, as I mentioned, to satisfy, just to fix this one issue which impacts other three metrics, CP, CFT, and NPS, we can have automated calculated amount. And not only does that, then we can have the complex distribution, maybe many often, multiple parties have to share a proportion of the amount. So that also depends on the policy. It can be very complex. So with with increasing the SDP and automating the pay amount for calculation and distribution, as the result, it changes the metrics in the right direction, and you can see the increase in profitability and customer satisfaction. So before I jump to the demo, that was a very high-level view of how you can improve some business metrics with some technology implementation that improves the objective of the business. In this case, we talked about profitability and customer satisfaction. Now, this is a very familiar form for many people that have had an accident. When you have car insurance and you have an accident, generally what happens is you need to provide the information about the accident to the insurer. And if that requires the manual input, this is how it looks like. Now, what you can see, if I can highlight here. So what you can see is at the circumstances part. Goli, do you see the highlighting
yes,
on my screen?
Yes.
I lost it, so let
No
me
problem.
do it again. I'll do it in red so it's more visible. So you put the circumstances of the accident, and this is in two sections, left and right. So for you and the other car, and you might check multiple check boxes based on what happened, and then you put the information about how the situation was and where was the damage and all of those information. Now, based on that, you launch a notice of loss, and it goes to the review. They look at the information. They said, yeah, it looks fine. It goes to the adjudication based on the policy information and terms, exception, conditions, everything. They look at it and they try to figure out who's at fault, and then they deal with it. Now, this is a in the adjudication, there is a settlement part which says who's at fault and how much who should pay to who. Now, we in the live demo, what we're going to do is we implemented a automated decision that allows to determine who's at fault based on the provided information. Before I go down that path and I'll show you the automated decision, even if you collect the information manually, you can still, for example, use creating the digital NOL by, let's say you have an email address for collecting, they can send the email address to that, and FlexRule can automatically pick the email, parse the data from this image, and create a digital NOL for you. So even if the channel is manual, you can still make it relatively automated using the technology we provide. Do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. The environment you see is called Flex Rule Designer. So Flex Rule Designer is our authoring platform, allows you to build and model and test business decisions, and then you can deploy them, you can debug them, you can integrate them into your processes, so on and so forth. At different stages, as I mentioned, you can have different decisions modeled and tested and deployed, and you have many different business decisions sitting in your processes that does the job automatically to improve those business metrics. As a result, improve the health of your business overall. Now, what you see at the screen, let me also zoom in. This is a decision about if two cars have an accident and the insurer of the insurer of those two parties have some kind of agreement with each other, and they can take actions and decisions on behalf of the party involved in the accident. It's called rapid dispute recovery. So rather than you do many things, they do it on your behalf. They recover the issues and claims on your behalf, and you're sitting home and you receive the check. Hopefully they use Flex Rule, so the total amount is also accurate, and you have nothing to worry about. Now, in this particular decision, what you see on the screen is called decision graph, and decision graph works in a very interesting manner. So you decompose a complex decision about RDR accident position to multiple smaller decision units. So if you look at the higher decision, it has a clearing eligibility and it has a car accident liability. In a particular example that I shared, if the insurers, they don't have any, for example, agreement with each other, so they're not eligible to do this. So you can move on to the next decision that you need to do. But let's assume these two insurers in this particular accident are eligible to get engaged in the rapid dispute recovery, or RDR. Now, the information that we shared, you filled in the form manually. Based on the information, there is an input to this model, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. And this input information will go to this particular model. A model, when I refer a model, model is a representation of the business decision, which you can see on the screen. This particular modeling technique is called decision graph. And then at the end of the this branch, we're going to define the liability of the cars involved in the accident. So if we drill down to this particular node, what you're going to see is this includes another decision graph. Interesting. So what that means is you don't need to include all the complexity in one process or one model, because what is going to happen, your business process will look like this. And you cannot really manage it or improve it or understand it for that matter. So that decision graph and ability to decompose a complex decision into multi-level of another decision graph and subgraph allows you to reduce the complexity of your decisioning. Now, if you look at this decision graph, at the top of the decision graph, we have the accident liability. Now, if we drill down to this, what you're going to see is something look like Excel, but it's not Excel. It's very similar to how Excel can be understood. So this is a set of business rules that drives a decision about who's at fault. Now you can see based on the number of the checkboxes you and the other party ticked on the form, and other circumstances that you selected on the form, we're going to determine who is at fault based on this particular set of rules. Now, if I go to the first model, decision graph, now Flex Rule Designer not only allows you to do this modeling job, which then it allows you to very clearly and transparently talk into your internal team and stakeholders to define how the decision is made. Also, you can put the you can provide the input information to the model and execute the decision. Now, this is not just a visual graphical representation of the business decision. This is an executable artifact, so you can use it as part of the automation. Now, if I provide some input information, let's put the FlexRoll Designer autonomy platform in the debug simulation mode. And what it does is you can see the yellow arrow, yellow highlighting on my screen. That's the step of the decision to be made. It hasn't been executed. It's about to be executed. I just skip a couple of these steps up front, so we get to see some values, the outcome of the decision. So if you look at the parameters window, as we go to different steps of the execution, I skip a couple of those steps. You can see we are making some intermediate decision as well. So based on the eligibility that I discussed, the information I provided, it says these two parties been in an accident and their insurers are eligible to engage on their behalf. So that's all good. Eligibility passed. So you can see now we are in the liability section for measuring the liability of the cars involved in that accident. Now, if I go to the next step, what is going to happen? This yellow arrow, yellow highlighting drives you to different stages of this decision. I can just stop and show you the result. Now, based on the information I provided, and what was the information? Let's look at this. So the counterparty said, had not observed the right of the way sign. And the other party said, entering a roundabout. So we put the input information based on what you see on the screen. And what you can see is the result says, it's a little bit small, but I read it. It says shared liability. So based on this particular scenario, no manual intervention was needed. And the model you created took a decision based on the input information and the rules and sub-decisions and models that you put in, and concluded it's a shared liability. Now, that's on your computer, how you can integrate it into your processes and the rest of the scenario. It can be for another webinar. But what we are showing here is if you use the decision graph to decompose a complex decision, the first thing is the decision you make is absolutely transparent and consistent, because computer does the same thing over and over again. Now, you can communicate the decision graph to your internal stakeholders. Also, that allows you to explain the reasoning behind the decision you make to your clients. So transparent, consistent, accurate, and it doesn't involve the manual intervention, meaning you can get to the adjudication and taking the eligibility and coverage calculate based on the automated decision quicker. So that involves, based on the metrics we talked about, let me just go quickly back here. So based on the metrics we discussed, we're talking about adding a straight-through processing in the adjudication, which in turn influences the claim ratio in the right direction. It reduces the settlement time, which this one influences these three other metrics in the claim for the business metrics that is important for your business, which if you move the needle through the right direction with the business metrics, in turn, you're increasing the profitability and customer satisfaction. If I go back to the model, now that's really as simple as you can see. So any questions so far?
Sure. Let me bring up the questions, Arash. I want to start with one of the most interesting questions we received, which is do you think that the consumers really want claims automation?
So interesting. Consumer cannot care less about automation. What they care is the pay amount is accurate. You get back to them as quickly as you can, and the result you're providing is explainable, and they want transparency. They can care less about automation, but you in the other side of the table care about automation because it allows you to do your job quickly, accurately, consistently, and transparently.
Yep, great. I hope we answered these questions. The second question that I'd like to ask Arash, which is, what are the technology investments needed to enable claims automation?
So there are multiple technology coming to the picture. So one is the workflow and process automation, which interestingly, in many insurers, when you look at the claim, that's what they have. But the problem is now they try to automate business decisions within those processes, which it looks like this at my screen. So what you need to do is you need another technology, in this case, FlexRoll Decision Management Suite, which allows you to model decisions end-to-end, and that's why we call it end-to-end Decision Management Suite. So then if you do that, what's going to happen? This particular process that you see on the screen will be transformed to this. Which one is easier to understand? Now, therefore, at the minimum, you require decision management, end-to-end decision management, and process automation.
Yeah, great. Let me just bring up the Q&A, Arash, again. There is one technology-related question I can see, which is the model that you showed. How do we do serverless deployments? Interesting. Now, if I open the model that I showed, this is the model. So in serverless deployment, what it means is the technology doesn't want to manage infrastructure and servers and CPUs and all of that. They want to just use the outcome of the service. And that involves many DevOps operations. So you need a DevOps team, you need generally AWS, Azure, Google, they all provide some shape and form of serverless functions that you can use. Now, the DevOps team should take this from your computer or wherever it is, does the packaging, write integration code, deploy it to the Azure, for instance, and then that becomes ready for you. However, in FlexRoll, we make it as easy as clicking a button. So in this particular case, we can say, I want to just name it test for the fun of it. And I go to deployment. And by default, built in, we support 3 cloud providers, Microsoft Azure, AWS, and Google. So let's say you want to select serverless for Azure. You select this. You put the information related to your credential, and you press publish. And that's all you need to do. And FlexRoll will deploy this as an Azure function for you. So if I go back here, before the session starts, I already done that. So you can see I have already deployed this particular model in the Azure. And if we go back to a testing tool, something like Postman, you can see I put some information for the input here, and I press the send, which executes the request, and I have the result. You can see in this particular instance, that's the counterpart liability. So they're going to need to pay for the accident. Yeah, it seems that it just works like a magic rush. And I can see just one more last questions. What are the potential barriers to innovating the claim process? So at heart, innovation means applying quick changes, testing in isolation, and rolling out at stages. So if we have a process that looks like this, that's impossible. What you need to do is you need to
allow the domain expert of the field build new decisions, build new criteria, test it locally, deploy it, and then allow them to go to the production without involving or burden to the IT, so they can rapidly create many different scenarios and test them in the real cases. But you don't need to roll out on the 100% of the request. You can say we want to roll out on 2% of the request, and then you can look at the outcome and measure the impact of those decisions. So we have a blog post that how to measure the impact of the decisions in insurance. That's interesting because by nature, business decisions are far-reaching. So you change somewhere in terms of decision making, you will not know in 2 or 3 weeks or even months how does that particular change influences the metrics we talked about. So that's where we have a integrated booklet that allows you to measure the existing changes against your existing portfolio or your future portfolio to make sure you have a correct changes that you apply, move the needle in the right direction that you want.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Arash, we landed to the last slide of our presentation.
What that means, you want me to share the last slide?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And I actually like to.
That's the other screen.
Yes, that's fine.
Sorry to that. Ah, from the beginning. Let's do that.
That's fine. Adrian, I'm going to hand over to you to finish up this exciting webinar for us.
Thank you, Goli. I appreciate that. Thank you, Arash. That was very insightful. We like to make our content community driven. So if there's anything you'd like to see, any suggestions, comments, or feedback, we love to hear from you. If you're interested to learn how we can help improve your company's KPIs or customer satisfaction, I invite you to contact us at info@flexrule.com. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you learned something and enjoyed our webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was fun.
Thanks, Arash. Thanks, Adrian.